The moment the waiter smirked and said, "We don't serve people like you here," the entire restaurant froze. Forks paused mid-air. Conversations fell silent, and even the clinking of glasses seemed to stop. Big Shaq stood there, wearing a plain hoodie and baseball cap, his massive frame towering over the podium where the waiter stood. He didn't react right away, just let the silence stretch, his deep brown eyes fixed on the young man in front of him. If you didn't know him, you might think he was just another customer having a bad night. But this was Shaquille O'Neal, NBA. Legend, businessman, philanthropist, and most importantly in this story, the owner of the very restaurant he had just walked into. The problem? The waiter had no idea who he was talking to. It was a rainy Thursday evening when Shaq decided to make an unannounced visit to one of his smaller, upscale restaurants downtown. This wasn't one of his headline-grabbing investments. It was a cozy fine dining spot he'd opened quietly to support the local economy and give people steady jobs. He liked to pop in every now and then to see how things were running when nobody knew the boss was around. That night, he arrived alone, dressed down to blend in and pushed through the glass doors, shaking rainwater from his sleeves. But before he could even ask for a seat, the new waiter, Mark, gave him a once-over that was so blatantly judgmental, it would have been almost funny if it weren't so disrespectful. "Do you even know how much a meal here costs?" Mark asked with a little laugh, as if the very idea of Shaq being a customer was absurd. Shaq kept his cool, tilting his head slightly, a small smile playing on his lips. "Why don't you seat me and we'll find out," he said in a low, even tone. But Mark wasn't done. As they walked to a corner table, he leaned down just enough for only Shaq to hear. "We usually save this table for real customers who actually fit the place." Shaq didn't respond. Instead, he pulled out his phone and sent a single, short text. The rest of the restaurant went back to its usual rhythm, though a few guests kept sneaking glances at the enormous man now seated quietly in the corner. Mark returned to take his order, his smugness still intact, but Shaq's calm demeanor didn't crack once. 10 minutes later, the restaurant's general manager burst through the front doors, clearly out of breath. His eyes swept the room until they landed on Shaq, and his expression shifted instantly to one of surprise and panic. "Sir, I didn't know you were coming tonight," he said, hurrying over. Mark's eyebrows shot up. "Sir? Wait, you know this guy?" he asked. The manager turned to him, his voice tight. "This is Shaquille O'Neal. He owns this restaurant." The color drained from Mark's face so quickly it was almost comical. The smug grin vanished, replaced by the wide-eyed look of a man who had just realized he'd insulted the wrong person in the worst possible way. The other customers were now openly watching, forks hovering over plates, wine glasses suspended mid-air. Shaq slowly stood up, his height making the room feel suddenly smaller. He didn't raise his voice, but the quiet authority in his words carried through every corner of the dining room. "I built this place for everyone," he said, gesturing around. "For people to feel welcome, respected, valued, whether they're wearing a suit or a sweatshirt. If my staff can't do that, then they don't belong here." Mark stammered, trying to form an apology, but Shaq held up a hand to silence him. The message was clear. "You're done for tonight," Shaq said firmly. "Go home. Think about the way you just treated someone you thought was beneath you." Mark swallowed hard, nodding mutely before disappearing toward the back. The manager looked nervous, probably wondering if Shaq was about to fire him too for letting someone like Mark represent the restaurant. But Shaq's expression softened slightly as he turned back to his table. He wasn't the type to explode in anger. He preferred to teach lessons that stuck. The rest of the diners, now buzzing with whispers, seemed more interested in the drama than their meals. As Shaq sat back down, he addressed the room once more. "Here's something everyone should remember. Respect is free, and it's the one thing that should always be on the menu." A ripple of quiet applause moved through the restaurant, and even the kitchen staff peeked out to see what was happening. The tension slowly melted away, replaced by an almost celebratory atmosphere. Shaq ordered a full 3-course meal, tipped the servers generously, and stayed long enough to talk to a few guests, making sure the night ended on a positive note for everyone else. A week later, Mark returned, not in uniform, but in plain clothes, asking to speak to Shaq. He'd spent the week thinking about what happened, replaying his words over and over, and realizing just how wrong he'd been. To his surprise, Shaq agreed to meet him in the dining room. "I don't hold grudges," Shaq said, "but I do expect change." Mark apologized sincerely, promising to treat every customer with respect from that day forward. Shaq, true to his word, gave him another chance. From then on, Mark became one of the friendliest, most respectful servers in the place, and anyone who dined there afterward could sense that the most important thing being served wasn't just the food, it was the reminder that you never know who's sitting at your table,